The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the transmission from Kepler 442b flickered to life. Ambassador Zethera of the Crystalline Hegemony watched the holographic display with growing dread, her translucent form shimmering with anxiety. The images showed massive creatures, each standing nearly 3 meters tall, with four powerful limbs and skin that seemed to absorb light itself. Their eyes glowed like miniature stars, and when they moved, the very ground trembled beneath their weight. "The Void Stalkers have claimed another world," whispered Counselor Vexthal, his bioluminescent patches flickering rapidly in distress. The squid-like alien's tentacles writhed as he spoke, betraying his fear. That makes 17 systems in the past lunar cycle. The assembled representatives of 43 different species shifted uncomfortably in their respective environmental chambers. Some floated in methane-rich atmospheres. Others required intense gravitational fields, but all shared the same expression of terror as they watched the Void Stalkers methodically consume everything in their path. These creatures were unlike anything the galaxy had ever faced. They didn't just conquer worlds, they devoured them entirely. Every living thing, every mineral deposit, every drop of water simply vanished into their endless hunger. Planets that had thrived for millennia were left as barren, lifeless rocks floating in space. Our combined fleets have proven useless, Admiral Kethval of the Raptor Consortium reported, his feathered crest drooping with defeat. Their ships phase through our energy weapons, and their hull material seems to adapt to any physical projectile we launch. We've lost over 200 vessels trying to stop them. The holographic display shifted to show a massive space battle. Sleek alien warships fired brilliant energy beams and launched swarms of missiles at the Void Stalker vessels, which looked more like living organisms than constructed ships. The attacks passed harmlessly through the enemy craft, as if they were striking shadows. In response, tentacle-like appendages emerged from the Void Stalker ships, wrapping around the alien vessels and crushing them like fragile toys. Ambassador Zethera raised one of her crystalline appendages, calling for order. As the eldest member of the Council and representative of the most ancient civilization in known space, her words carried significant weight. We must face the reality before us. Our greatest military minds, our most advanced technologies, our most powerful weapons have all failed. The Void Stalkers continue their advance toward the core systems, and at their current rate of expansion, they will reach the capital worlds within 6 galactic standard months. A collective shudder passed through the chamber. The capital worlds housed trillions of beings from hundreds of different species. The thought of losing them was almost incomprehensible. "There must be something we can do," pleaded Representative Luxandra of the Ethereal Collective, her energy form flickering with desperation. "Our civilizations have existed for millions of years. We've overcome cosmic disasters, survived the heat death of stars, transcended physical limitations. There has to be a solution." Counselor Vexthal's bioluminescence dimmed to barely visible levels. "We've consulted every database, analyzed every possible strategy, reached out to every known civilization. The mathematical models all conclude the same thing. Given current variables and known capabilities, our defeat is inevitable." The chamber erupted in panicked chatter as representatives began communicating with their home worlds. Some spoke of evacuation plans, others discussed last-ditch military strategies, but all carried the same undertone of hopelessness. That's when a small, unassuming figure near the back of the chamber stood up. Dr. Nixtel of the Academic Union was barely a meter tall, with large, curious eyes and delicate features. Her species, the Scholars, had contributed more to galactic knowledge than any other race, but they were physically weak and generally avoided direct involvement in military affairs. "Honored Council," she began in her soft, melodic voice, somehow managing to cut through the chaos. "I believe there may be one option we haven't fully explored." Ambassador Zethera gestured for silence. "Speak, Dr. Nixtel." At this point, We're willing to consider any possibility. The small alien activated her personal data pad, and a new star map appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a small, unremarkable system on the very edge of known space. The system contained only one inhabited world, marked in an unusual blue color that none of the council members recognized. "This is the Sol system," Dr. Nixtel explained, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "It's located in what we've designated as Sector 7G, approximately 27,000 light-years from our current position. The system contains a single inhabited planet designated as Earth or Terra, depending on regional dialects." Admiral Kethval's crest raised slightly in confusion. "I don't understand. Why would an isolated system on the galactic rim be of any assistance? Our long-range surveys indicated primitive civilizations at best in that region." Dr. Nixtel's large eyes seemed to brighten. "That's where our assumptions may have been incorrect, Admiral. 3 cycles ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected unusual energy signatures from this system. When we investigated further, we discovered something extraordinary." She manipulated her data pad, and the display zoomed in on the 3rd planet from the system's star. The world appeared to be a beautiful blue-green marble, with white clouds swirling around continents and vast oceans. But as the image enhanced, details became visible that made several council members gasp in shock. Massive structures stretched across entire continents. Cities that housed hundreds of millions of beings glittered like jewels against the planet's surface. Most remarkably, the space around the planet was filled with artificial constructs, space stations, orbital platforms, and thousands of spacecraft moving in organized patterns. "The energy readings we detected weren't natural phenomena," Dr. Nixtel continued. "They were industrial signatures. This civilization has achieved spaceflight, planetary engineering, and what appears to be some form of faster-than-light communication. But that's not what makes them unique." The display shifted again, this time showing environmental data from Earth. The atmospheric composition, gravitational readings, radiation levels, and temperature variations appeared on the screen. As the council members absorbed the information, a new kind of silence fell over the chamber. "By the Ancient Ones," whispered Counselor Vexthal, his bioluminescence flickering in patterns that indicated profound shock. "The gravity readings that can't be correct." "They are correct," Dr. Nixtel confirmed. "Earth's surface gravity is nearly 10 times stronger than the galactic standard. The atmosphere pressure is crushing by our standards, and the radiation levels from their star would be lethal to most of our species within hours. The planet experiences dramatic weather patterns, tectonic activity, and has a natural satellite that creates massive tidal forces." Ambassador Zethera felt her crystalline structure vibrating with disbelief. How could any complex life form evolve in such hostile conditions? "That's precisely the point," Dr. Nixtel replied, her voice now filled with excitement. "Earth is what our xenobiologists classify as a Class 12 death world. The highest classification we've ever assigned to a planet that sustains complex life. Everything on that world has evolved under extreme conditions that would be immediately fatal to any member species of this council." The implications began to sink in. A civilization that had not only survived, but thrived on a world that would kill most galactic species within moments of exposure. The very environment that seemed like a hellish nightmare to them would be the everyday reality for these beings. "What do we know about their military capabilities?" Admiral Kethval asked, his predatory instincts overcoming his initial skepticism. Dr. Nixtel hesitated for a moment. "Our observations are limited, but what we've detected is concerning. Their space-based weapons platforms generate energy signatures that exceed our most powerful dreadnought cannons. They've somehow managed to harness the power of nuclear fusion for both energy production and weaponry. Most remarkably, they appear to have developed kinetic weapons that use their planet's extreme gravitational field as a launching mechanism." She paused, manipulating her data pad to bring up a new set of readings. "But the most unusual characteristic isn't their technology. It's their biology. The display showed anatomical scans of human beings, clearly obtained from long-range sensors. The council members studied the strange bipedal forms with growing amazement. Dense bone structures, powerful musculature, redundant organ systems, and, most remarkably, a skeletal framework that could withstand impacts that would liquefy most galactic species. Their bone density is nearly 3 times that of the strongest known species in our databases, Dr. Nixtel explained. Their muscle tissue generates force levels that our exobiologists initially dismissed as sensor errors. Their cardiovascular system can function efficiently under gravitational stress that would instantly kill most of us. Representative Luxandra's energy form pulsed with curiosity. You're suggesting these beings are naturally evolved warriors? I'm suggesting something far more significant, Dr. Nixtel replied, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I'm suggesting they're natural predators, apex predators, and they've evolved on a world that makes our most extreme military training environments look like peaceful gardens. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. A species that had evolved on a death world developed advanced technology while fighting for survival against their own planet, and possessed physical capabilities that exceeded the strongest warriors in known space. Ambassador Zethera felt hope stirring in her crystalline core for the first time since the Voidstalker crisis had begun. Dr. Nixtel, are you suggesting we make contact with these humans and request their assistance? I'm suggesting more than that, the small scholar replied, her eyes now bright with determination. I'm suggesting that we may have finally found a species that evolved specifically to fight the kind of war we're facing. The Voidstalkers are physical creatures, despite their strange abilities. They can be hurt, they can be killed. We just never encountered anything capable of doing so effectively. She gestured to the anatomical displays still hovering in the chamber. But humans evolved fighting creatures that make our worst nightmares look like pleasant dreams. Their planet is home to predators that would terrify a Voidstalker. And somehow, these humans became the dominant species on that world. Admiral Kethval's crest was now fully extended with interest. What kind of predators are we talking about? Dr. Nixtel's expression grew serious as she accessed another section of her database. The holographic display filled with images that made several council members recoil in horror. Massive reptilian creatures with teeth the size of sword blades. Ocean-dwelling monsters with tentacles that could crush spacecraft. Microscopic organisms that could dissolve living tissue in seconds. Their planet is essentially a weapons testing ground disguised as a biosphere, she explained. Every evolutionary niche is occupied by something designed to kill efficiently. And somehow, these humans not only survived, but learned to hunt these creatures for sport. The word sport caused another ripple of shock through the chamber. The concept of hunting apex predators for entertainment was so alien to most galactic species that many couldn't fully process it. They hunt Death World apex predators for recreation, Dr. Nixtel continued, while simultaneously developing technology capable of destroying their own planet multiple times over. Their historical records show they've been fighting continuous wars against each other for their entire recorded history, constantly developing new weapons and strategies. She paused, letting the information sink in before delivering her final point. And despite all of this, they've somehow managed to avoid destroying themselves and have begun expanding into space. If any species in the galaxy is capable of developing weapons and tactics effective against the Voidstalkers, it would be them. Ambassador Zethera considered the proposal carefully. Making contact with an unknown species was always risky, but the current situation left them with few options. What would be our approach? We know nothing about their diplomatic customs or cultural values. Our linguistic analysis AI has been working on their communication patterns, Dr. Nixtel replied. They use incredibly complex languages with thousands of different dialects, but we've identified several common mathematical and scientific concepts that should allow for basic communication. She brought up another display showing various human settlements and cities. They appear to be organized into multiple political entities that compete with each other for resources and territory. This actually works in our favor, as it means they're already familiar with the concept of alliances and mutual defense agreements. Counselor Vexthal's tentacles writhed thoughtfully. What exactly would we be offering them in return for their assistance? Technology sharing, access to galactic trade networks, and, most importantly, proof that they're not alone in the universe, Dr. Nixtel answered. Our anthropological models suggest that a species with their level of aggression and curiosity would be highly motivated by the prospect of exploring beyond their home system. The chamber buzzed with discussion as representatives consulted with their home governments and military advisors. The proposal was risky, potentially dangerous, and completely unprecedented. But with the Void Stalkers advancing toward the core worlds and conventional defenses proving useless, desperation was beginning to override caution. Admiral Kethval spoke up after several minutes of consultation. My military advisors point out that even if these humans prove willing to help, we have no guarantee their weapons would be effective against Void Stalker technology. That's true, Dr. Nixtel acknowledged, but we do have one advantage. The Void Stalkers have been adapting to counter our energy-based weapons and standard kinetic projectiles. They've never encountered weapons designed by a Death World species. There's a reasonable chance the human weapons operate on principles so different from ours that the Void Stalkers haven't developed countermeasures. Ambassador Zethera felt the weight of decision settling on her shoulders. As the senior council member, the choice would ultimately rest with her. The survival of galactic civilization hung in the balance, and their only hope might lie with a species that most members of the council would classify as terrifying monsters under normal circumstances. Dr. Nixtel, she said finally, how long would it take to reach the Sol system and make contact? With our fastest diplomatic vessel using maximum hyperspace compression, approximately 47 standard days, came the reply. The timeline was cutting it close. Void Stalker projections indicated they would reach the outer defense perimeters in approximately 90 days. That would leave less than 50 days to establish communication, negotiate an agreement, and develop joint tactical responses. I'm calling for an emergency vote, Ambassador Zethera announced, her crystalline form resonating with authority. All those in favor of dispatching a diplomatic mission to the Sol system to request assistance from the human species? One by one, representatives across the chamber signaled their approval. Some seemed enthusiastic about the prospect. Others appeared terrified by the implications, but all recognized the desperate nature of their situation. The final vote was unanimous. As the session concluded and representatives began filing out to prepare for the most important diplomatic mission in galactic history, Dr. Nixtel remained behind, staring at the holographic display of Earth. She wondered what they would find when they reached that distant death world. Would the humans prove to be saviors, or simply another form of nightmare? Either way, the galaxy was about to discover what happened when the children of a death world decided to take their first step into the wider universe. The diplomatic vessel Peaceful Convergence dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system 46 days later, its exotic matter drives leaving ripples in space-time that would be undetectable to most primitive sensor arrays. Ambassador Zethera stood in the observation deck, her crystalline form reflecting the light of the alien star that these humans called their sun. Beside her, Dr. Nixtel monitored the ship's advanced sensors, documenting everything they encountered. Initial scans confirm our previous data, Dr. Nixtel reported, her large eyes focused on the readouts. The third planet matches all our Death World classifications. Surface gravity, 9.8 units, atmospheric pressure crushing, radiation levels that would sterilize most galactic species within hours. Captain Veltar of the Navigators Guild shifted nervously in his environmental suit, the 3-meter-tall mantis-like alien clearly uncomfortable with the entire situation. Ambassador, Our passive sensors are detecting massive energy signatures throughout this system. Their technology level appears more advanced than our initial estimate suggested. The observation deck's main display activated, showing a detailed scan of the inner system. What they saw defied their expectations completely. The space around Earth teemed with artificial structures. Massive orbital stations rotated slowly in perfect synchronization. Hundreds of spacecraft moved in organized patterns between the planet and its natural satellite. Most remarkably, they detected what appeared to be permanent settlements on multiple celestial bodies throughout the system. By the Ancient Ones, whispered technical specialist Korthmek, his insectoid features twitching with amazement. They've colonized their entire star system. Look at those construction signatures on the fourth planet. They're terraforming it. Dr. Nixtel's excitement was palpable as more data streamed across her displays. The asteroid belt between the fourth and fifth planets shows signs of massive mining operations. They're harvesting raw materials on an industrial scale that rivals some of our core world production facilities. But what captured everyone's attention were the defensive installations scattered throughout the system. Massive platforms bristling with weapons that generated energy signatures unlike anything in their databases. Kinetic launchers that seemed to harness gravitational forces in ways their scientists had never conceived. Most disturbing of all, they detected what appeared to be artificial singularities contained within shielded structures. "Captain," Ambassador Zethara said, her voice carrying the weight of command, "begin broadcasting the universal greeting protocols. Full-spectrum transmission using all known mathematical constants and scientific principles." Captain Veltar activated the communication array, sending out carefully crafted signals designed to demonstrate intelligence and peaceful intent. The messages included prime number sequences, mathematical theorems, atomic structures of common elements, and basic pictographs showing the Galactic Council's desire for communication. For several minutes, nothing happened. The diplomatic vessel continued its careful approach toward the outer edge of Earth's orbital space, maintaining a respectful distance while broadcasting continuously. Then, their sensors detected something that made Captain Veltar's antennae snap to full alert. "Ambassador, we're being scanned," he reported, his voice tight with concern. "Multiple sources, incredibly sophisticated sensor arrays. They're probing our whole composition, energy signatures, even our biological life signs." The scans were unlike anything they'd experienced. Instead of the broad-spectrum sweeps used by most galactic civilizations, these were precisely targeted, almost surgical in their accuracy. Within minutes, the humans had gathered more information about their vessel than most species could collect in days of intensive study. "They're efficient," Dr. Nixtel observed with grudging respect. "And careful. Look at these sensor patterns. They're not just identifying us. They're assessing our threat level." Then, their communication array crackled to life. The first response was purely mathematical, confirming that the humans had received and understood their greeting. But what followed next caused a collective intake of breath throughout the bridge. The humans had not only decoded their basic mathematical concepts, but had improved upon them, sending back solutions to complex problems that had puzzled Galactic Council scientists for centuries. "They understood our mathematics instantly," Dr. Nixtel said, her voice filled with awe. "And they're demonstrating capabilities that exceed our own in several fields." The next transmission contained what appeared to be linguistic constructs. The humans were attempting to establish a communication protocol, but their approach was far more sophisticated than anything the Galactic Council typically encountered. Instead of simple pictographs or basic mathematical relationships, they were transmitting complex grammatical structures, phonetic patterns, and even cultural context markers. Dr. Nixtel worked frantically with the ship's linguistic analysis AI to decode the messages. "They're not just trying to communicate," she explained. "They're trying to teach us their language. Look at this progression. They're starting with basic concepts and building up to complex abstract thoughts." Within hours, a rudimentary communication protocol had been established. The first actual message from Earth was brief, but profound in its implications. Unknown vessels. You are welcome in SOL system. State peaceful intentions and origin. The fact that they'd assumed peaceful intentions rather than demanding them spoke volumes about human psychology. Ambassador Zethera carefully composed their response, explaining their identity as representatives of the Galactic Council and their desire for diplomatic contact. The human response came quickly. Galactic Council acknowledged. Representatives welcome. Will escort TO, secure orbital facility. What happened next demonstrated the humans' technological capabilities in a way that left the diplomatic mission speechless. 3 vessels appeared on their sensors, as if materializing from nothing. The ships were unlike anything in Galactic Council databases, sleek and predatory in design, with hull configurations that seemed to incorporate stealth technology beyond their understanding. Where did they come from? Captain Veltar asked, his voice reflecting the concern shared by everyone on the bridge. Unknown, replied Technical Specialist Korthmek. Our sensors detected no approach signatures, no engine emissions, no gravitational disturbances. They were simply not there, and then they were. The escort vessels maintained a respectful distance while guiding the peaceful convergence toward what appeared to be a massive orbital station. As they approached, the true scale of human engineering became apparent. The station was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, with multiple rotating sections and docking facilities that could accommodate hundreds of vessels. Population readings indicate over 50 million inhabitants, Dr. Nixtel reported, her voice reflecting her amazement. This isn't just a station. It's a city, a flying city in space. The docking procedures were efficient and surprisingly accommodating. The humans had somehow analyzed their vessel's requirements and prepared a suitable berthing area with appropriate atmospheric and gravitational adjustments. As they secured to the docking clamps, Ambassador Zethera felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension about the historic meeting that was about to take place. The airlocks cycled, and the first humans they encountered were clearly military personnel. They wore form-fitting suits that enhanced their already impressive physical capabilities and carried weapons that generated energy signatures the Galactic Council's databases couldn't identify. But what struck the diplomatic team most forcefully was the human's presence. Each human stood nearly 2 meters tall, with dense bone and muscle structure clearly visible even through their clothing. Their eyes held an intelligence that seemed to analyze and categorize everything around them instantly. Most remarkably, they moved with a controlled grace that suggested incredible physical power held perfectly in check. The lead human stepped forward and spoke in carefully pronounced galactic standard, clearly having learned the language in the few hours since first contact. Welcome to Luna Station. I am Commander Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. We're honored by your visit and curious about your purpose. Ambassador Zethera found herself momentarily speechless. Not only had the humans learned their language in an impossibly short time, but this Commander Chun radiated an authority and confidence that was almost overwhelming. She was clearly a warrior, but her approach was diplomatic and measured. I am Ambassador Zethera of the Crystalline Hegemony, representing the Galactic Council, she replied, her translator working overtime to convert her crystalline resonance patterns into audible speech. We come seeking your assistance in a matter of galactic security. Commander Chin's expression grew serious. Perhaps we should move this conversation to a more secure location. If you're comfortable with our atmospheric conditions, we've prepared a conference facility that should accommodate your environmental needs. The walk through Luna Station was a revelation. The corridors were spacious and filled with humans going about their daily business. Children played in zero-gravity recreational areas while their parents worked at tasks the diplomatic team couldn't identify. Most remarkably, everyone they encountered seemed completely comfortable with the presence of alien visitors, as if contact with extraterrestrial species was a common occurrence. Commander Chin, Dr. Nixtel asked as they walked, how long has your species been aware of alien life? The human smile was slight but meaningful. We've been monitoring galactic communications for approximately 70 years. We know about the Galactic Council, the various member species, and the general state of galactic politics. We've just never announced ourselves. The implications of this statement hit the diplomatic team like a physical blow. The humans have been watching them for decades, learning about galactic civilization while remaining hidden. They'd had the technology to make contact years ago, but had chosen to remain isolated. Why reveal yourselves now? Ambassador Zethera asked. Commander Chan paused before a massive viewport that showed Earth hanging in space like a blue-green jewel. Because 72 hours ago, our deep space monitoring arrays detected something that our xenobiologists classified as a Class Alpha extinction threat. Something that appears to be consuming entire star systems. The diplomatic team exchanged glances. The humans had detected the Void Stalkers on their own. That's precisely why we're here, Ambassador Zethera said. The beings you detected are called Void Stalkers. They've destroyed 17 systems in the past lunar cycle, and our combined fleets have proven ineffective against them. Commander Chen nodded grimly. We've been analyzing the engagement data from your battles. Your weapons and tactics are sophisticated, but they're designed for conflicts between civilized species. The Void Stalkers aren't civilized. They're predators. She led them into a conference room that demonstrated human attention to detail. The chamber had been configured with environmental controls for each member of the diplomatic team, allowing them to exist comfortably in their preferred atmospheric conditions while still sharing the same space. The question, Commander Chun continued as they settled into positions around a holographic display table, is what you're asking us to do about it. Ambassador Zethera activated her personal data storage unit, projecting detailed information about the Void Stalker attacks, their capabilities, and the failed defense attempts. The humans studied the data with an intensity that was almost predatory, their eyes tracking every detail as they absorbed information about enemy capabilities and tactics. Interesting, Commander Chen murmured as she reviewed battle footage. They phase through energy weapons, adapt to kinetic projectiles, and their ships appear to be partially organic. But look at this. She manipulated the holographic display, highlighting specific moments from the battle recordings. Their phase technology isn't perfect. There's a brief moment during their attack cycles where they become solid enough to interact physically with your vessels. They have to become corporeal to cause damage. Dr. Nixtel leaned forward, her large eyes bright with interest. Our tacticians missed that detail completely. Because your species didn't evolve to hunt, another voice said from the conference room entrance. The new arrival was clearly human, but older than Commander Chun, with gray hair and scars that spoke of extensive combat experience. I'm General Marcus Torres, Strategic Defense Command. I've been reviewing your tactical data since you entered our system. General Torres moved to the display and began manipulating the projections with practiced ease. Your species developed warfare as an extension of resource competition. Efficient, civilized, designed to minimize casualties while achieving strategic objectives. The Void Stalkers developed as apex predators. They don't compete for resources, they consume them entirely. He brought up new displays showing Earth's evolutionary history, images of predators and prey locked in eternal struggle. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a death world. We don't just fight for resources, we hunt to survive. Every military doctrine, every weapon system, every tactical innovation in our arsenal is designed around one simple principle. How do you kill something that's trying to kill you? Ambassador Zethera felt a chill run through her crystalline structure. The casual way these humans discussed killing was both terrifying and exactly what they needed. General Torres, she said carefully, are you saying your species would be willing to help us fight the Void Stalkers? The general's smile was predatory. Ambassador, we've been preparing to fight the Void Stalkers since we detected them 3 days ago. The only question is whether you're prepared for what human warfare actually looks like. Commander Chen activated another set of displays showing human military capabilities. Weapons that harness stellar energy kinetic projectiles that could crack planets, biological agents designed to disrupt alien physiologies, and, most disturbing of all, something they called reality anchors that seemed to lock space-time into stable configurations. Our preliminary analysis suggests the Void Stalker's phase technology relies on dimensional manipulation, General Torres explained. We've developed countermeasures for similar threats, but implementation will require close coordination with your fleets and access to Void Stalker specimens for testing. Dr. Nixdale's voice was barely above a whisper. You want to capture Void Stalkers for experimentation? We want to understand how they work so we can kill them more efficiently, the general replied matter-of-factly. Standard human approach to apex predators. Study, adapt, overcome. The conference room fell silent as the diplomatic team absorbed the implications. The humans weren't just offering to help. They were proposing to take the war to the Void Stalkers using methods that would horrify most galactic species. What would you need from us? Ambassador Zethera asked finally. Commander Chun consulted her datapad before responding. Technical specifications for your faster-than-light travel, detailed tactical data from all previous engagements, and coordinates for the Void Stalker approach vectors. In exchange, we'll provide military assistance and technology sharing agreements. How soon can your forces be ready for deployment? Ambassador Zethera asked. General Torres exchanged a look with Commander Chun before answering. Ambassador, our forces have been ready for deployment since we detected the threat. We've been waiting for you to arrive so we could coordinate our response. He gestured toward the viewport, where Earth hung in space. Every human military installation in the system has been on maximum alert for the past 72 hours. Our deep space patrol fleets have been redeployed to intercept vectors, and our research divisions have been working around the clock to develop countermeasures. The efficiency was staggering. In the time it had taken the Galactic Council to make a decision and send a diplomatic mission, the humans had analyzed the threat, developed preliminary countermeasures, and positioned their forces for immediate deployment. There is one condition, Commander Chen added, her expression growing serious. This is humanity's first major contact with galactic civilization. The way this conflict resolves will determine our species' relationship with the wider galaxy for generations to come. We need assurance that our contribution will be recognized and that Earth will be granted appropriate status in any post-conflict political arrangements. Ambassador Zethera considered the request carefully. The humans were essentially asking for guaranteed membership in the Galactic Council in exchange for their assistance. Given their technological capabilities and current desperation, it seemed like a remarkably reasonable demand. I believe those terms can be arranged, she replied, pending approval from the full council. But given our current circumstances, I'm confident in their acceptance. General Torres nodded approvingly. Then, let's begin immediate coordination. Time is a factor, and we have a war to plan. As the diplomatic team settled in for detailed strategic discussions, Ambassador Zethera found herself feeling something she hadn't experienced since the Void Stalker crisis began. Hope. These humans were terrifying in their casual approach to violence, but they were also exactly what the galaxy needed. The children of a death world were about to take their first step into galactic warfare, and the Void Stalkers had no idea what was coming for them. The first joint operation between human and Galactic Council forces took place 18 days later in the Kepler 438 system, where Void Stalker scouts have been detected probing the outer asteroid fields. Admiral Keth Val of the Raptor Consortium commanded a fleet of 200 vessels from 15 different species, while the humans contributed what they modestly called a reconnaissance force consisting of 12 ships. Admiral Keth Val studied the human vessels through his flagship's observation deck, his predatory instincts struggling to categorize what he was seeing. The human ships were smaller than most Council warships, but radiated an aura of barely contained violence that made his feathers ripple with unease. Their hull configurations defied conventional design principles, with angular surfaces that seemed to absorb sensor scans and weapon emplacements that could only be described as predatory. Human Fleet Commander, This is Admiral Kethval. Our sensor arrays have detected 3 Void Stalker Scout vessels approaching the system's edge. Standard protocol dictates maintaining defensive positions until we can assess their capabilities. The response came immediately from the lead human vessel, the UES Relentless. Admiral Kethval, this is Captain Lu Wei. With respect, standard protocol is why you've been losing ships. Request permission to demonstrate alternative tactics. Before the Admiral could respond, the human ships simply vanished from his sensors. Not the gradual fade of stealth technology, but instant, complete disappearance as if they had never existed. Where did they go? Admiral Kethval demanded of his sensor operator, a nervous crystalline technician whose form was flickering with confusion. Unknown, Admiral. All 12 human vessels have disappeared from our tracking arrays. No energy signatures, no gravitational disturbances, no hyperspace transitions. They're simply gone. The Void Stalker Scouts appeared at the system's edge minutes later, their massive forms phasing between dimensions as they approached. The alien creatures moved with the confident arrogance of apex predators that had never encountered effective resistance. Their ships pulsed with dark energy, reality seeming to bend around them as they prepared to begin their systematic consumption of the system's resources. Admiral Kethval ordered his fleet into standard defensive formation, energy weapons charging, and kinetic launchers preparing to fire. The previous 18 battles against Void Stalkers had followed identical patterns. The Council forces would engage with overwhelming firepower. The Void Stalkers would phase through the attacks while destroying Council ships, and eventually the survivors would retreat to report another defeat. But this time, something different happened. The lead Void Stalker Scout suddenly convulsed, its massive form writhing as something struck it from an impossible angle. Dark ichor sprayed from wounds that appeared to open spontaneously along its hull, and its reality-distorting aura flickered like a damaged hologram. What's happening? Admiral Kethval demanded, struggling to understand what his sensors were recording. Unknown energy signatures impacting Void Stalker vessels. His technician reported, voice tight with disbelief. The attacks appear to be coming from multiple vectors simultaneously, but we detect no attacking vessels. The second Void Stalker Scout tried to phase shift to avoid whatever was attacking its companion, but the moment it began the dimensional transition, it suddenly became solid again with devastating force. The creature's scream echoed across multiple dimensional frequencies as it was locked into normal space-time. Then, the human ships reappeared. They materialized in a perfect attack formation around the 3 Void Stalker Scouts, their weapons systems already firing. But these weren't the energy beams or kinetic projectiles the Admiral was familiar with. The human weapons generated effects that seemed to violate fundamental laws of physics. Reality anchors locked the Void Stalkers into normal space-time, preventing their phase-shifting abilities. Gravitational torpedoes created localized singularities that tore at the creature's exotic matter hulls. Most disturbing of all, the humans deployed what they called dimensional mines that exploded across multiple planes of existence simultaneously. Captain Lu Wei's voice crackled over the communication channel, calm and professional despite the chaos of the battle. Admiral Kethval, we're transmitting tactical data on Void Stalker weak points. Target the neural clusters located along their central axis when they're locked in normal space. The Admiral watched in amazement as his targeting systems received detailed anatomical information about the Void Stalkers. The humans had somehow mapped the creature's biology during the brief engagement, identifying vulnerable points that decades of Council research had failed to discover. All ships target the specified locations. Full firepower concentrated on neural clusters. The combined fleet opened fire with precision that surprised even Admiral Kethval. Council energy weapons, normally useless against Void Stalker hulls, found purchase against the creatures while they were locked in normal space-time. Kinetic rounds that would normally phase harmlessly through enemy ships struck with devastating effect. The first Void Stalker Scout died, screaming across 14 different dimensional frequencies. The second attempted to retreat, but found its escape route blocked by human ships that had somehow anticipated its movement pattern. The third tried to send a distress signal to its main fleet, but human jamming technology prevented any communication from escaping the system. Within 30 minutes, all 3 Void Stalker scouts have been destroyed, their massive forms drifting lifeless through space. It was the first complete victory against Void Stalker forces in the entire war. Captain Liu Wei, Admiral Kethval said, his voice reflecting the awe shared by every member of his fleet. How did you accomplish this? The humans' response was matter-of-fact, almost casual. We studied their behavior patterns and adapted accordingly. Void Stalkers are apex predators, but they're used to hunting prey that can't fight back effectively. They've never encountered a predator species that evolved specifically to hunt other predators. Admiral Kethval felt his understanding of warfare fundamentally shift. The humans hadn't just defeated the Void Stalkers. They'd hunted them with the systematic efficiency of creatures born to kill. Admiral, Captain Liu Wei continued, we're detecting Void Stalker main fleet elements approximately 6 light-years away. Based on our analysis of their communication patterns, they'll investigate the disappearance of their scouts within 48 hours. We recommend immediate preparation for a much larger engagement. The prospect of facing a Void Stalker main fleet had previously been considered virtual suicide. These formations consisted of dozens of the massive creatures, supported by smaller predator variants, and protected by reality-distorting fields that made conventional tactics impossible. But Captain Liu Wei's tone suggested the humans were looking forward to the challenge. What do you recommend? Admiral Kethval asked, still struggling to process the complete tactical reversal he'd just witnessed. We implement what we call a persistence hunt, the human replied. It's a human specialty. We don't try to overpower the prey immediately. Instead, we exhaust them, wound them, force them to expend energy on healing and defense until they're vulnerable to final attack. Over the next 36 hours, Admiral Kethval watched human tactical doctrine unfold with horrifying efficiency. Small human strike teams appeared throughout nearby systems, attacking Void Stalker supply lines and communication networks. The attacks were precisely calculated to cause maximum disruption while avoiding decisive engagement. The humans called it bleeding the enemy. Each strike followed the same pattern. Human ships would appear without warning, deliver devastating attacks against specific targets, and disappear before the Void Stalkers could respond effectively. They targeted sensor arrays, command nodes, and what appeared to be feeding mechanisms, slowly degrading Void Stalker capabilities without triggering a full-scale response. They're not fighting a battle. Dr. Nixtel observed from her position aboard Admiral Kethval's flagship, where she was documenting human tactical methods. They're conducting a systematic extermination campaign. The main Void Stalker fleet arrived in the Kepler 438 system 60 hours later, clearly agitated by the harassment attacks and the loss of their scouts. 47 massive creatures accompanied by over 100 smaller predator variants, protected by a reality-distorting field that made them appear as nightmarish shadows against the stars. Admiral Kethval's fleet had been reinforced to over 400 vessels, the largest council force ever assembled. But, looking at the Void Stalker formation, he felt the familiar dread that had plagued every previous engagement. Then, Captain Liu Wei requested a private communication channel. Admiral, we need you to do exactly what you've always done. Engage with standard tactics, draw their attention, make them focus on your fleet. Captain, standard tactics have never worked. We'll be slaughtered. Not this time. We've had 72 hours to prepare the battlefield. Trust us. Admiral Kethval felt every instinct screaming against the plan, but the memory of the previous victory convinced him to follow the humans' guidance. He ordered his fleet into standard attack formation and began the approach that had led to disaster so many times before. The Void Stalkers responded exactly as expected. They began their reality-distorting attack, phasing between dimensions while their energy weapons carved through council ships. Admiral Kethval watched his formation being systematically destroyed and wondered if the humans had simply abandoned them to die. Then, The trap was sprung. Reality anchors that had been positioned throughout the system during the previous 3 days activated simultaneously, creating a dimensional lock that prevented the Void Stalkers from phase shifting. The massive creatures suddenly found themselves trapped in normal space-time, their primary defensive capability negated. But the humans weren't finished. Gravitational mines that had been placed along predicted Void Stalker movement routes detonated in sequence, creating artificial asteroid fields of exotic matter that disrupted the creatures' formation. Communication jammers blocked their ability to coordinate responses. Most devastating of all, the humans had somehow weaponized the system's star. Solar Lance preparing to fire, Captain Liu Wei announced calmly. All Council forces clear the targeting zone. Admiral Keth Val watched in amazement as the humans fired what could only be described as a controlled solar flare. Stellar plasma contained within magnetic bottles struck the Void Stalker formation with the concentrated fury of a star. The creature's reality-distorting abilities provided no protection against an attack that operated on fundamental astrophysical principles. The first wave of Void Stalkers died instantly, their exotic matter hulls unable to withstand stellar-level temperatures. The survivors tried to scatter, but found their escape routes blocked by human ships that appeared from dimensional hiding places throughout the system. What followed could only be called a systematic extermination. Human vessels engaged individual Void Stalkers with weapons specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses discovered during months of careful study. Dimensional disruptors prevented phase shifting. Neural targeting systems focused on the creature's biological weak points. Reality anchors forced them to remain vulnerable to conventional weapons. The Council fleet, instead of being massacred as in previous battles, found themselves in supporting roles, their weapons finally effective against creatures locked in normal space-time. Admiral Keth Val watched his energy cannons burn through Void Stalker hulls that had previously been invulnerable, feeling a mixture of elation and terror at the efficiency of human warfare. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Void Stalker fleet had been completely destroyed. Not a single creature escaped to warn others of the new tactics being employed against them. Captain Liu Wei's voice came over the communication channel one final time. Admiral Keth Val, we've captured several Void Stalker specimens for analysis. Our xenobiological teams should have countermeasures ready for their remaining variants within 10 standard days. Admiral Keth Val stared at the drifting remains of the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever known, creatures that had seemed invincible just hours earlier. The humans had not only defeated them, but had done so with such systematic efficiency that it suggested the outcome had never been in doubt. Captain Liu Wei, he said finally, what exactly is humanity planning to do about the main Void Stalker invasion force? The humans' response sent chills through every member of the Council fleet. We're going hunting, Admiral. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when a Death World species decides something needs to die. Dr. Nixtel watched the human ships disappear into hyperspace and wondered what kind of beings they had unleashed upon the galaxy. The humans had proven they could kill Void Stalkers, but their casual efficiency at extermination was almost as terrifying as the creatures they had just defeated. The children of Earth had taken their first step into galactic warfare, and the universe would never be the same. The main Void Stalker invasion force was detected 3 weeks later, emerging from the dark space between galaxies like a plague of living nightmares. Long-range sensors counted over 1,500 of the massive creatures, accompanied by thousands of smaller predator variants, and something new that made even the human analysts pause, a command organism the size of a small moon, its biomechanical structure pulsing with energy that distorted space-time for light years in every direction. General Torres stood in the command center of Luna Station, studying the tactical displays with the same intensity a wolf might reserve for selecting prey. Around him, human military specialists worked alongside Galactic Council observers, their respective technologies creating an unprecedented fusion of death-dealing capability. Xenobiology confirms the large organism is their central intelligence, Dr. Sarah Kim reported, her voice tight with fascination and horror. It's not just commanding the swarm. It's controlling them through some form of quantum entanglement. Kill the command creature, and the entire invasion force becomes uncoordinated. Ambassador Zethera watched the humans work with growing unease. Over the past 3 weeks, she'd observed them dissecting captured Void Stalker specimens with scientific precision that would make most galactic species violently ill. They'd mapped neural pathways, analyzed exotic matter composition, and tested weapon effectiveness with the methodical thoroughness of beings who had spent millennia perfecting the art of killing. "General Torres," she said, her crystalline form resonating with concern, "the Council fleets are reporting maximum readiness. 400 vessels from 23 different species, equipped with the countermeasures your people developed. But that command creature, our xenobiologists estimate it's at least 5 kilometers in diameter. How do you propose we penetrate its defenses?" The general's smile held no warmth, only the predatory satisfaction of a hunter who had found the perfect killing ground. "Ambassador, we're not going to penetrate its defenses. We're going to make it come to us." The tactical display shifted, showing the Sol system with new additions that made the Galactic Council observers recoil in shock. Human engineering teams had spent the last 3 weeks converting their entire star system into the largest weapons platform in galactic history. Jupiter's moons had been hollowed out and converted into kinetic launch platforms capable of accelerating projectiles to significant percentages of light speed. Saturn's rings had been seeded with gravitational mines that could create localized space-time distortions. Most remarkably, they'd somehow turned Earth's moon into a massive reality anchor that could lock dimensional space across an entire star system. "You've weaponized your home system," Dr. Nixtel whispered, her large eyes reflecting the horror and admiration shared by every non-human in the command center. "We've prepared the perfect hunting ground," General Torres corrected. "Void Stalkers are apex predators, but they're also incredibly arrogant. They've never encountered prey that could fight back effectively, so they don't understand the concept of a trap." Captain Shun activated another section of the display, showing communication intercepts from the approaching invasion force. The Void Stalkers were broadcasting on multiple dimensional frequencies, their signals carrying the confident expectation of easy victory. "They're planning to consume Sol System's outer planets first, then work their way inward," she explained. "Standard feeding pattern for their species. They have no idea we've been monitoring their tactical doctrine for months." The plan the humans outlined was audacious beyond anything the Galactic Council had ever conceived. Instead of meeting the invasion force in open space, they would allow the Void Stalkers to enter Sol System and begin their feeding cycle. Only when the creatures were fully committed to their attack pattern would the trap be sprung. "The psychological profile suggests they'll become increasingly aggressive as they encounter resistance," Dr. Kim added. "Void Stalkers interpret effective opposition as a challenge to their dominance. The harder we fight, the more determined they'll become to destroy us completely." Admiral Kethval, who had requested permission to accompany the human forces, felt his predatory instincts warring with tactical caution. "This strategy risks everything. If your trap fails, Earth itself becomes vulnerable." General Torres nodded grimly. "Admiral, humanity didn't become the dominant species on a death world by playing it safe. Sometimes the only way to kill a superior predator is to make it so angry that it makes a mistake." The waiting began. Human deep space monitoring stations tracked the invasion force as it approached Sol System, documenting movement patterns and communication protocols with obsessive detail. The Galactic Council fleets took position in the outer system, ready to play their role as apparently helpless prey. Dr. Nixtel spent the time studying human psychological profiles, trying to understand the mindset that could remain calm while gambling their entire civilization on a single tactical gambit. What she discovered both fascinated and terrified her. "They're not just confident," she reported to Ambassador Zethera during one of their private communications. "They're excited. The prospect of facing the most dangerous predators in the galaxy isn't causing fear, it's causing anticipation. These beings actually enjoy mortal combat. The Void Stalker invasion force arrived at Sol System's edge exactly as predicted, their massive forms blotting out entire star fields as they approached. The command creature led the formation, its moon-sized bulk pulsing with energy that made nearby space ripple like disturbed water. General Torres watched the tactical displays with the patience of a hunter who had spent months preparing for this moment. All stations report ready. Reality anchors charged, kinetic platforms loaded, gravitational mines armed. Council fleets in position. The first phase of the battle unfolded exactly as the humans had predicted. The Void Stalkers ignored the Galactic Council forces, dismissing them as insignificant based on previous encounters. Instead, they focused on Jupiter, beginning their feeding cycle by attempting to drain the gas giant's energy. That's when the first surprise was revealed. Jupiter wasn't just a planet anymore. It had been converted into a massive fusion reactor. The moment the Void Stalkers began feeding, they triggered a controlled stellar ignition that flooded local space with radiation and exotic particles that disrupted their phase-shifting abilities. The command creature's scream echoed across multiple dimensions as it realized the trap, but by then, it was too late. The invasion force was fully committed to the system, their formation scattered by the unexpected energy discharge. All units, initiate Hunter Protocol, General Torres commanded, his voice carrying the quiet satisfaction of a plan coming together. What followed was the most devastating display of coordinated firepower in galactic history. Saturn's weaponized rings launched gravitational mines that created maze-like distortions in space-time, herding the Void Stalkers into predetermined killing zones. Luna's reality anchors locked entire sections of space, preventing dimensional phase shifting over vast areas. The converted moons of Jupiter began their kinetic bombardment, launching projectiles at relativistic velocities that struck with the force of small supernovas. Each impact was precisely calculated to exploit the weak points discovered during months of specimen analysis. But the humans weren't finished. Solar Lance systems preparing to fire, Captain Chen announced. All friendly forces cleared designated targeting zones. The humans had somehow weaponized their own star. Magnetic field manipulators focused solar output into coherent beams that struck the Void Stalker formation with stellar-level intensity. The exotic matter hulls that had proven immune to conventional weapons began to buckle under forces that operated on astrophysical scales. The command creature tried to rally its forces, but human communication jammers prevented effective coordination. Worse, the humans had learned to mimic Void Stalker command frequencies, broadcasting false orders that sent smaller predator variants attacking their own forces. Admiral Kefval watched the systematic destruction with growing amazement. They're not just winning, he reported to his fleet commanders. They're completely dismantling the most dangerous military force in galactic history. The battle raged for 18 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt once the trap was sprung. Human tactical doctrine proved perfectly adapted for fighting creatures that had never encountered effective resistance. Every Void Stalker tactical response had been predicted and countered. The command creature made its final desperate gambit 6 hours before the end, attempting to ram Earth directly in a suicide attack that would have destroyed human civilization. But the humans had prepared for this contingency as well. Earth's moon detached from its orbit. The satellite had been converted into a massive kinetic weapon, its trajectory perfectly calculated to intercept the command creature's approach. The impact released energy equivalent to a medium-sized stellar explosion, destroying both the moon and the Void Stalker command organism in a blast that could be seen from neighboring star systems. When the debris cleared, the Void Stalker invasion force had been completely annihilated. Not a single creature survived to carry word of their defeat to other Void Stalker clusters that might exist in deep space. General Torres stood in the shattered remains of Luna Station's command center, watching rescue teams pull survivors from the wreckage caused by the moon's destruction. The victory had come at a cost, but humanity had achieved something no other galactic civilization had managed: the complete defeat of a Void Stalker invasion force. Casualty reports. He requested from his aide, Colonel Martinez. Military losses are approximately 12,000 personnel, mostly from Luna Station when we detonated the moon. Civilian evacuations were successful. No population centers were significantly damaged. Material losses include Luna Station, the lunar mass driver, and approximately 30% of our outer system defensive platforms. The numbers were sobering, but acceptable for the magnitude of the victory achieved. More importantly, the humans had demonstrated capabilities that would fundamentally alter galactic politics. Ambassador Zethera approached through the wreckage, her crystalline form reflecting the emergency lighting. General Torres, the Galactic Council wishes to express its gratitude for humanity's decisive action. The threat that has terrorized our civilization for months has been eliminated. Ambassador, the general replied, his voice carrying undertones that made her structure resonate with unease. Eliminating this invasion force was just the beginning. Our xenobiology teams have identified the Void Stalker's point of origin. There are more of them out there, entire clusters of these creatures waiting in the dark between galaxies. The implications hit her like a physical blow. The creatures they just defeated were merely the vanguard of a much larger threat. "What are you suggesting?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer. General Torres' smile held the predatory satisfaction of a hunter who had discovered new prey. Ambassador, humanity has just proven we can kill Void Stalkers effectively. Now we're going to hunt down every last one of them and make sure they never threaten galactic civilization again. Dr. Nixtel watched the exchange from across the damaged command center, documenting everything for her reports to the Council. The humans had saved galactic civilization, but in doing so they'd revealed something that might be equally dangerous. A species that could not only match the Void Stalker's predatory efficiency, but exceed it. The children of a death world had proven they could protect the galaxy, but now they were looking toward the dark spaces between stars with the eyes of hunters who had found a worthy challenge. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when humanity decided to go hunting among the stars. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the Galactic Council convened for the most significant political gathering in their recorded history. The Grand Assembly Chamber on Nexus Prime had been expanded to accommodate representatives from 47 different species, all gathered to address the fundamental question that now dominated galactic politics: what to do about humanity. Ambassador Zethera stood before the assembled delegates, her crystalline form reflecting the chamber's ceremonial lighting as she prepared to deliver a report that would reshape interstellar civilization. Around her, the greatest minds in the galaxy waited with expressions ranging from gratitude to profound unease. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice resonating through the chamber's translation matrix. 6 months ago, this council faced extinction at the hands of an enemy we could not defeat. Today, that threat no longer exists, eliminated by a species that most of us had never encountered. The main display activated, showing footage from the Battle of Sol that still made seasoned military commanders shift uncomfortably in their environmental suits. The systematic destruction of the Void Stalker invasion force played out in clinical detail, demonstrating human tactical capabilities that exceeded even the most optimistic projections. But the elimination of the Void Stalker threat is only the beginning of the story, Zethera continued. In the months since that victory, humanity has undertaken what they call the Great Hunt, a systematic campaign to eliminate Void Stalker clusters throughout the galaxy and beyond. She gestured to the display, which shifted to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red markers indicated former Void Stalker territories, while blue markers showed the current locations of human hunting fleets. The scope of the operation was staggering. Counselor Vexthal of the Tentacled Collective raised one of his bioluminescent appendages. "Ambassador, our intelligence reports suggest the humans have eliminated 7 additional Void Stalker clusters in the past 6 months. Clusters that our combined fleets couldn't even locate, much less engage successfully." "That's correct," Zethera confirmed. "Human deep space reconnaissance capabilities appear to exceed our own by several orders of magnitude. They've located Void Stalker breeding grounds, supply bases, and what appear to be command centers in regions of space we considered empty. Admiral Kethval, now bearing the honorary title of Human Liaison Officer, activated his personal display to share additional data. The human approach to warfare has proven far more comprehensive than our own tactical doctrines anticipated. They don't simply engage enemy forces. They systematically eliminate the enemy's ability to sustain warfare. The chamber watched in fascinated horror as human fleets demonstrated what they called ecosystem warfare. Instead of fighting individual void stalker groups, they targeted the cosmic phenomena that the creatures used for sustenance. Dark matter concentrations were dispersed, dimensional weak points were sealed, and entire regions of space were rendered uninhabitable to void stalker physiology. They're not just winning battles, Admiral Kethval explained. They're conducting a systematic extermination campaign that will make it impossible for void stalkers to exist anywhere in this galaxy. Representative Luxandra of the Ethereal Collective flickered with concern. This efficiency is remarkable, but it raises questions about human intentions that extend beyond the current conflict. What happens when they finish eliminating the void stalker threat? The question that everyone had been avoiding hung in the chamber like a malignant presence. Humanity had proven they could kill anything in the galaxy, but their ultimate goals remained unclear to most council members. Dr. Nixtel stepped forward from her position among the academic observers. In the months since first contact, she had become humanity's most knowledgeable chronicler, spending extensive time aboard human vessels to document their culture and psychology. Honored delegates, she said, her soft voice somehow carrying through the vast chamber. I've spent the last 6 months studying human society, psychology, and strategic thinking. What I've discovered suggests that our concerns about human intentions may be misplaced. She activated her own data display, showing detailed sociological analyses and psychological profiles. Humans are apex predators, this is true. But they're also pack hunters who have developed complex social structures based on cooperation and mutual protection. Their aggression is directed outward toward threats to their pack, not inward toward pack members. The display shifted to show human settlements and colonies established in the aftermath of void stalker territory clearing. Instead of military installations or resource extraction facilities, the images showed civilian populations, research stations, and what appear to be nature preserves. Every system the humans have cleared of void stalkers has been converted into what they call sanctuary space, Dr. Nixtel explained. These aren't military conquests. They're protective zones where displaced galactic species can resettle safely. Counselor Marindoke of the Silicon Collective processed this information with visible skepticism. Dr. Nixtel, you're suggesting that humanity's expansion is motivated by protective rather than predatory instincts. Not protective, Dr. Nixtel corrected. Territorial. Humans have expanded their territory to include our galaxy, and they now consider themselves responsible for protecting everything within that territory. It's pack behavior on a galactic scale. The implications were staggering. Instead of viewing galactic civilization as potential prey or competitors, humans had apparently adopted every council species as part of their extended pack. The systematic elimination of void stalker clusters wasn't conquest, it was territory clearing. Ambassador Zethera felt her crystalline structure resonate with a mixture of relief and lingering unease. Dr. Nixtel, what evidence supports this interpretation? Direct observation and communication with human leadership, she replied, gesturing to activate a new section of her display. 3 weeks ago, I was granted access to human strategic planning sessions aboard their flagship, the UES Eternal Vigil. What I observed was remarkable. The display showed recordings from human military planning sessions, translated into galactic standard for the Council's benefit. Instead of conquest strategies or resource allocation plans, the humans were discussing optimal patrol routes to protect galactic trade lanes, defensive positions to shield vulnerable worlds, and something they called threat assessment protocols for identifying future dangers to galactic civilization. They're not planning to rule the galaxy, Dr. Nixtel continued. They're planning to guard it. Every strategic discussion I observed focused on protective positioning and rapid response capabilities for potential threats. General Torres' voice suddenly filled the chamber through the communication array, his presence somehow conveying authority even across interstellar distances. Dr. Nixtel is correct. Humanity has no interest in governing galactic civilization. We're interested in making sure it survives. The unexpected communication caused a stir throughout the chamber. Human vessels had somehow approached Nexus Prime without being detected by the most sophisticated sensor arrays in the galaxy. General Torres, Ambassador Zathura said, struggling to maintain diplomatic composure. This is an unexpected honor. We weren't aware of human presence in this system. We're not technically in your system, the general replied with what sounded like amusement. We're in dimensional space adjacent to your system. Human stealth technology has improved significantly since our first encounter. The casual demonstration of capabilities that exceeded galactic understanding sent ripples of unease through the assembled delegates. If humans could approach the galactic capital undetected, no world in the galaxy was beyond their reach. General, Counselor Vexthal asked, his bioluminescence flickering with nervous energy, what are humanity's long-term intentions regarding galactic civilization? Simple, Torres replied without hesitation. We're going to make sure nothing like the Void Stalkers ever threatens this galaxy again. We're establishing permanent defensive positions around the galactic perimeter, developing early warning systems for extragalactic threats, and creating rapid response capabilities that can address any future crisis. He paused, allowing the implications to sink in before continuing. Humanity learned long ago that the best way to protect your territory is to eliminate threats before they become problems. We're extending that philosophy to include this entire galaxy. Admiral Kethval leaned forward, his predatory instincts responding to the strategic implications. General, you're describing a fundamental transformation of galactic defense doctrine. The creation of a unified military command structure that supersedes traditional territorial boundaries. That's exactly what we're describing, Torres confirmed. The Council can continue governing internal galactic affairs exactly as you have for millennia. But external threats, anything that threatens galactic civilization from outside our borders, will be handled by humanity. The proposal was unprecedented in galactic history. A single species offering to assume responsibility for the defense of an entire galaxy, asking for nothing in return except the right to protect what they now considered their territory. Representative Luxandra flickered with confusion. General Torres, what does humanity gain from this arrangement? Galactic defense requires enormous resources and continuous vigilance. What compensation do you require? The general's response reflected the fundamental difference between human psychology and that of most galactic species. Representative, humans don't require compensation for protecting our pack. The survival and prosperity of galactic civilization is its own reward. Ambassador Zathura felt the weight of historical significance settling around the chamber. The decision made in the next few hours would determine the future of galactic civilization for millennia to come. General Torres, she said formally, if the Council agrees to this arrangement, what guarantees do we have that humanity won't eventually view us as threats to be eliminated? The response came immediately, without hesitation. Ambassador, humans have been living alongside apex predators for our entire evolutionary history. We know the difference between threats and pack members. More importantly, we know that a strong pack benefits everyone within it. Dr. Nixtel stepped forward again, her data display now showing comprehensive analyses of human colonial policies. The evidence supports General Torres' statement. Every world under human protection has experienced increased prosperity, enhanced security, and complete autonomy in internal affairs. Humanity has consistently demonstrated that they view galactic species as valuable pack members rather than potential threats. The debate that followed lasted 17 hours, with representatives consulting home governments and military advisors throughout the galaxy. But the fundamental reality was inescapable. Humanity had already proven their ability to protect galactic civilization, and their territorial expansion was proceeding regardless of Council approval. The final vote was unanimous. The Galactic Defense Compact was signed 6 hours later, formally recognizing humanity as the external defense force for the galaxy while maintaining the Council's authority over internal affairs. It was a division of responsibilities that reflected the unique capabilities of each group. Galactic species would continue their roles as diplomats, scientists, and administrators, while humans would serve as the galaxy's guardians against external threats. General Torres materialized in the chamber through what appeared to be a personal teleportation device, his presence commanding immediate attention from every delegate. The human stood before the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, no longer an alien visitor, but a protector whose authority extended across the stars. "Honored delegates," he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute commitment. "Humanity accepts the responsibility you've granted us. From this moment forward, nothing will threaten this galaxy without facing the full fury of a death world species that has learned to hunt among the stars." As the ceremony concluded and delegates prepared to return to their home worlds with news that would reshape galactic civilization, Dr. Nixtel remained behind to complete her final report. She had witnessed the transformation of humanity from unknown aliens to galactic guardians, and the implications still amazed her. "Personal log, final entry," she dictated to her recording device. "Humanity's integration into galactic civilization represents the most significant evolutionary step in our recorded history. A species evolved on a death world has chosen to extend their protective instincts to include an entire galaxy." She paused, watching through the chamber's viewing ports as human patrol fleets took position around Nexus Prime, their sleek vessels already beginning the eternal vigil that would protect galactic civilization from external threats. "The children of Earth have taken their final step into our civilization," she continued. "They came as potential saviors, proved themselves as warriors, and now stand as guardians. The galaxy sleeps safer tonight, knowing that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, human hunters are watching for threats that would harm their adopted pack." The recording ended, but Dr. Nixtel continued watching the human vessels as they disappeared into hyperspace, beginning patrol routes that would take them to the furthest reaches of galactic space. Somewhere in the vast darkness beyond the galactic rim, other threats might be stirring, but they would find their path blocked by beings who had learned to hunt the hunters. Fear had once gripped the galaxy when faced with an unstoppable threat. But now, when dangers emerged from the cosmic dark, they would discover what it meant to face the fury of a species that had earned its dominance on a world where everything was designed to kill. The Deathworlders had taken their step into galactic civilization, and the universe would never be the same.